The HR Happy Hour Network is proudly sponsored by WorkHuman. Nearly 9 in 10 HR leaders say they don't have a strong leadership bench. WorkHuman's Future Leaders gives organizations a smarter way to build one. Future Leaders is the first talent intelligence solution to identify high potential VP plus talent already within your workforce, up to 4 years before promotion. Using proprietary AI and real-time recognition data, it uncovers the leadership signals hidden in everyday work, long before traditional succession planning can. It's a smarter, data-driven approach to building tomorrow's leaders. Learn more at workhuman.com. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back to the Outlook America show. My name's Steed. I'm with Trish. Steed. Trish, how are you? What is happening?
I'm good. I'm back to work, sort of, a little smidge. So after 4.5 weeks, I guess 4 weeks off, kind of easing back into it. But the first recording, so I'm super excited for today's show.
You're like a European worker, taking a summer off, right? And disappearing.
Let me tell you what, I would say don't take a summer off if what you're doing is getting a new knee, because it is painful. So yeah, vacation should be relaxing and pain-free. So I'm definitely not vacationing, but I'm going to be super excited when this thing starts really working. Positive news, I rode my recumbent bike for 45 minutes on Sunday.
Wow.
So yeah, that was at like 4.5 weeks. So
is that like a stationary bike, or are you out on the street on that thing?
No, it's a stationary bike, but you're like leaned back a little further, so it takes that pressure, a little bit of pressure off your knees.
Sure.
It's not like a regular bike, so
yeah.
But still, very hard. You quickly go from like not being able to do anything to all of a sudden you can just do it. So
yeah. Nice. Yeah. Well, welcome back. Good to have you back. We did a few shows in your absence, and folks can check those out on hrhappyhour.net or on our YouTube channel or Spotify or wherever. But yeah, we're excited for today's show. Your guest today, you know why, Trish? Because when you're talking Workplace Movie Hall of Fame, revisiting a topic and sort of the same show, even though it's a new season of the same show we did last year, which is America's Sweethearts, which is a story behind the scenes documentary of the famous Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders. It's on Netflix, 7 episodes in the current season. Season 3, by the way, I had to look that up. I wasn't sure if it was 2 or 3. It's season 3 that's out there now. Emmy Award nominated, by the way. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Emmy Award nominated in a category called Outstanding Unstructured Reality Program, which is seems quite specific, but it's up against shows like the RuPaul's Drag Race and Welcome to Wrexham, the soccer documentary, and I forget what else. But so yeah, this is a good story for folks who haven't seen this or don't recall it from the last time we talked about it. This is a really fascinating topic because it's probably 87% about work and the job of being a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader and the job of being a manager and a leader of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Trish, what did you think of season 3? Say maybe even compared to season 2.
Yeah. So if I'm being honest, when we did it, I enjoyed watching season 2. I had seen not season 1, but I think they had another show even prior to that. I forget what it was called, but something ones, right? So I had seen bits and pieces here and there, and season 2 was all about work, right? And I enjoyed it, but I kind of thought like when Karen, our producer, said, "Oh, we're going to do another season," I was like, "Really? What else could there be?" Right? We've kind of covered it. No, I'm so glad, and I'm so glad I was like laid up at home because I binged it yesterday and the last little bit this morning. And I know we're going to dig all into it. So many changes that they have made since last season in the way they work and in the way that the girls are treated and the way that the leaders are showing up. So yeah, it was if you've not seen it or if you're not even thinking about it, I actually liked this season better in terms of really thinking about not just myself as a leader over the years, but just work in general. I thought it was much more valuable. I don't know. What did you think when you watched it?
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit, and I think some of the reasons why I think you're seeing the differences um, in the documentary and in the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleader organization
Yeah.
is, for folks who don't know, there was a really significant pay increase that
Mhm.
got implemented in advance, really, of the season that this documentary is showing. Right, this documentary is about a year old, so
Yeah.
it's taking you through the tryouts and the auditions and the practices and really the last season of the football season for the cheerleaders. So that would be the 2025 into 2026 season.
Yeah.
For folks who don't know, it was highly controversial because the cheerleaders for Dallas, as well as I think just about all the other teams in professional sports, had very, very low pay, no benefits, just kind of were exploited, right? And I know last year when we did our podcast about the season, I'm certain I went off on a rant about how the workers, in this case the cheerleaders, are being exploited by the
Mhm.
fact that so many people want to be on this team. It's a very prestigious job in this world and in this profession, both the profession of cheerleading, but also even just dancing in general. Right? It's a very highly sought after job, and there's lots and lots of people trying out for it. And the organization knows this, and therefore didn't really have to do very much to make working conditions, palatable, safe, friendly, pay them fairly, et cetera, et cetera. The cheerleaders finally got together. You don't really see this much in the documentary, but what was happening sort of outside the documentary was the group got together and just went hard at the organization to increase wages significantly. And Trish, I did look this up right before the show. I don't know if you had a chance to, but their rate of pay went from $15 an hour for rehearsal time
Mhm.
to $75 an hour for rehearsal time. Their
Legit.
per game fees went from about $500 per game per cheerleader to $2,500 per game. And their appearance fees, they do lots of other things besides cheer at these games, right? They do corporate appearances, they do calendar shoots, they do other promotional things.
Mhm.
Uh, all went up as well. And according to these Gemini that I looked up this morning, that the top compensated cheerleaders can make up to $150,000 a year,
Right.
right? Being a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. So, long story short, Trish, this job is much, much different, right? Based
Mhm.
on just working conditions and compensation from the job that we talked about even just a year ago on this podcast.
Absolutely. I thought it was really interesting. They catch you right at the beginning of it with one of the cheerleaders, one of the veterans saying she has had to become, an HR person, a therapist, all these different things, hats that she's wearing to go through getting this increase. Right. So
Yeah.
they didn't make it easy. I mean, this organization, when you think about how many billions of dollars this organization produces, right? With all sorts of things, brand deals and everything else beyond just the football tickets, right? That
Yeah.
people think of. And to think about, because I'm like you, I looked it up and I saw $15 an hour and I thought, what in the world? Well, think about it now though. If you could make 150,000, boy, the competition's gonna get even more strong next year, right? For what they're probably doing right now, right? Because it's always filmed in summer, so
Hmm.
they've probably decided at this point because 'cause we're almost to football season, right? But,
Right.
yeah, this summer, I'm sure the numbers had to have gone up in terms of people coming from all around the world to try out for
Well,
this.
yeah, it's notable in the documentary. The team is structured. It's a big team. There are
Mhm.
36 cheerleaders on the team, right?
Right.
Who go through the audition process and get selected, make the cut, etc.
Mhm.
They note at the beginning part of the documentary how many of the prior year cheerleaders are want to return and remain on the team. And it was
Mhm.
30 out of the 36 from the prior season, which they
Right.
talk about a few times on the show. The managers there and the leaders talk about that being, a record number of returnees.
Sure.
I'm certain one of the reasons, if not the primary reason, right, for a record number of returnees is all of a sudden they were going to start making money. They're finally going to start getting paid. And so
Right.
the job just itself became much better even just in terms of compensation, all of a sudden, hey, I can maybe make a living. I don't have to get another job. If you remember, Trish,
Mhm.
on the last season we did this documentary and we did the podcast, almost every one of the cheerleaders that were featured that I can recall had another job. They had a day job,
Yeah.
right, to keep
Right.
themselves alive and pay their bills and pay their rent because the cheerleading job paid almost nothing.
Yeah, and these are young, these are for the most part younger women, typically early 20s. And so even a full-time job isn't probably paying them a ton, whatever that is. Some were nurses and some were in other
Yeah.
fields. But yeah, these aren't like workers, who can just do this in their free time with no money, right? So these are girls that actually needed the money and they deserve the money. If you don't know anything about the entire, cheer and dance side of things, it looks so exhausting. And they are working. They'd work all day and then they'd come in and work until midnight dancing
Yeah.
and do routines and so yeah, it's and the scrutiny too on these girls is so great that it was just exhausting them. So I am glad to see that they've at least addressed the money issue. I think the other thing I was really happy they did was they must have done some type of survey, the leaders, right? So we have Judy Trammell and Kelly Finglass, who were both cheerleaders for them in the 80s. One is the choreographer now, the head choreographer, one is the director.
Hmm.
And um and then you see a little bit of Charlotte Jones, right? Who's Jerry Jones's daughter, sort of in charge of brand. So, and I thought she came across a lot sweeter than last year. So,
I she did, and I'm
what did you think
guessing,
about that?
yeah,
Did someone
she
talk to her?
got
Was there
some
any sort
notes
of
from.
conversation? A little brand
Mhm.
awareness, maybe. Yeah. So, but what my point being, I think that by the pay being sort of taken off the table, like we know they're being paid well now. Because they said it was like a 400% increase,
Mhm.
but overdue, right? Um, I think this season for me, what I felt was really different was they must have done a survey because the two main sort of director and choreographer lead, they allude to it throughout the season. And I can't even tell you, Steve, I made pages and pages of notes about
Mhm.
how angry I was at those 2, and I personally want to fly down to Dallas and have an HR conversation with those 2 ladies. I was upset on my couch. I don't
Well,
know. How'd you feel?
I'll say this. So we have now, as we've mentioned, we've watched this documentary, and this is our second podcast where we're talking about this show. One year to the next, I do think these two leaders, right, the organizational leaders who are probably in their midish 50s, if I were to guess, maybe a little older, I don't know.
One is 61, Kelly is 61, and Judy is 68.
Okay, so kind of boomer really then, or heavy top end of Gen X or boomer, right?
Yeah.
And they did come off on season two that we watched and did the podcast on last year, very tone deaf, very out of touch, very unlikable, quite frankly.
Abs
And and I was really tough on them, as I recall. I do think both of them have softened quite a bit, but also taken feedback from the team members, right? The team members repeatedly, if there's one scene we see throughout the entire 7 episodes, it comes up at least 4 or 5, maybe even half a dozen times, where team members talk about wanting more feedback, wanting to have more real interactions with the team leaders, with the bosses, essentially, want to hear what they think, want good and bad, but especially good, right? They
Yeah.
want it, they want recognition, right? Shout out to our friends at Work Human who sponsored the podcast, right? They are calling out for that recognition and being recognized for their contributions and their hard work. And it's a very, very big deal to these team members who, as you said, again, Trish, are probably ranging from 20, 21, 22 on the low end to maybe 27, 28 on the high end. So they're Gen Zers, right? Pretty much the whole lot of them
Yeah.
really want that feedback. And I thought both the bosses were much more in tune to that this year. I didn't come away from this year saying, man, those bosses they're so out of touch. They're so like, they need to go. I did think, the team could use maybe a third leader in the mix. Um, maybe they should hire like an assistant director who's maybe a more recent former cheerleader on the team to kind of be a liaison to the team members and maybe kind of really groom someone, right? As you said, these leaders are 61 and 68. I'm guessing they're not going to do this forever, right? Where is the next set of leaders going to come from? It's probably time for this organization to start thinking about that as well. So I came off much more positive this year about leadership and kind of the lessons they've learned. And their growth as leaders, honestly.
So I'm probably going to be the little opposing view, which I love when we kind of disagree. You know what? I came across, or they came across to me worse than last year, and here's why.
Really?
This is truly the HR hat on. Okay, if I were the CHRO there for that organization, I would fire them both, and here's why. Because at 61 and 68, it is not my job to start teaching you how to become a leader. If you don't know it by 61 and 68, out the door, like you mentioned, there are plenty of other former DCC cheerleaders or qualified individuals who can come in there and actually show they care. And I want to read something because I wrote this down. So do you remember? There's a point. I have an example even. Okay, here's why. Because on paper, yes, did they do a survey? Are there a few moments where it's like, oh, I hate Klein, but I love her? No, you actually don't love her. You hate her. You've said that first, right? I get it. So I have my little HR ears on for this. There's a portion in one of the episodes where they're announcing, like, obviously, if you're the front cheerleader in the point when they're all on the field, right? That is the spot. That is the most coveted spot. So some of the feedback must have said, we want more chances to be in that spot. So they're announcing, we're going to, in our first 4 games, we're going to switch the girls, right? So they say the first one, oh, so-and-so is going to be our point in game 1. All the girls, oh my gosh, everybody's so excited. They're cheering. They're surrounding the girl, hugging. Everybody's hugging. What are the 2 leaders doing? They're standing at the side annoyed. The next one gets announced for game 2. Again, everybody's happy, hugging, because this is the biggest moment you can give one of these girls, one of these veterans who's been working on this 4 years to be the point, right? And I wrote down, Kelly and Judy have actual contempt for their cheerleaders. When announcing the rotating point of the triangle, they showed it. Judy, the choreographer, actually, her exact words were, are they going to hug every time? And Kelly was like, I guess so. Like this face, I guess so. And then they announced the other 2. And of course, so you literally have 2 leaders. Yes, are they listening to what the survey said and doing a new thing? They are. But what the girls didn't see, and I hope to God they don't watch it back, is contempt. Because then when Kelly says something like, I don't even know if I can do it, congratulations, and she purses her lips and kind of half smiles with one side up, dude, that is contempt. It's disdain. So right there, if I were Charlotte, their boss, I'd go downstairs right now, Charlotte Jones, and fire those 2, because it's not going to, here's the thing. You can't train that out of someone. Once you have contempt and disdain for your employees, you cannot train it out. So I don't know, been in HR, it'll be 30 years next year. And that's my takeaway on their leadership. I think they both deserve to be fired. I think their days are done. And I think when you look at the end of who stayed and who went, and I won't give any spoilers, but a shocking number are not coming back for this year. And it's because of that. You can't hide disdain. You cannot hide your contempt when you're at work.
Yeah, I remember that scene. I didn't read it as harshly critical of the 2 leaders as you. I do recall, and what you said is true. And those are while the team members were sort of celebrating and congratulating each other for this achievement of being selected to be the leader, right, for the various games,
Of
they
person.
were a little bit annoyed that was happening. To me, it seemed more like they just wanted to get on this
But
you
okay,
know
message for all leaders. It might not be a big deal to you, but think back. Those were both former cheerleaders. I don't know
yeah,
if they ever got point. Maybe they're jealous they never got point. I don't know. But that's a big deal. When you think about your employees, just because it's you can't remember, you never had that when you were in your 20s, whatever it is, my God, let them celebrate. What is seriously 10 extra seconds of hugging 4 times? So we're talking about a minute's worth of hugging.
yeah.
We
It,
have
it,
time for a minute of hugging, but we're this new, they need work human. I'm not even kidding you. Like, that's the kind of organization where you think that even spending a minute letting people be happy and recognize each other's accomplishments is too much.
yeah.
Get out. I would literally fire any leader I saw doing that shit.
Yeah, the team members were crying out for feedback and recognition throughout
Yep.
the entire season. There's no doubt about that. And maybe this speaks to some of the tension there in that particular scene. Kind of speaks to just a thing we see playing out in organizations all over the place now, which is
Mhm.
the kind of just differences in how generations think about work, think about the workplace, think about the relationships at work. I mean, Gen Zs are different. They are right. They are, and we've got a couple of leaders who are much much older. Probably back in the '80s when they were on the team. Maybe the celebrations and were different. They were more muted. If you dig into, they didn't really talk about it in this season. In season two, they spent a little bit of time talking about the origins of the DCC,
Mhm.
and the person who was in charge before Kelly was a real hardcore, tough
Yeah.
person, right? And so they came up in that in that world, right? In a culture of an organization that was much
Sure.
much different, right? And so the Gen Z cheerleaders of today are really trying to move the culture, even though they probably are not sitting around talking about it. Hey, let's change the culture of this
Right.
organization. That's what they're doing, right? Just
Right.
through how they interact, how they want to interact, how they want to interact with their bosses. So another huge undercurrent of this season is what's happening outside of work, right? For these
Mhm.
cheerleaders, because through through these Netflix documentaries in particular, right over the last couple of years, the DCC itself has gotten even more popular than they were,
Sure.
and the cheerleaders themselves are more famous, more in demand. Many of them, right, and we see this in the documentary, many of them are earning quite lucrative careers for themselves outside of DCC, right, doing sponsored posts and appearances and interviews, whatever they're doing, right, podcast appearances. And there's a lot of tension. Now, this is not a normal workplace thing. I don't want to spend too much time on this show talking about this because most of our workplaces and most of the leaders who are listening to this don't have to worry about their staff doing brand deals right outside of work and having that being a big deal in the workplace because that's just not what happens, right? But for these guys it was a big deal. And just I think the generational kind of tension here is really what's playing out both in that scene that you described, Trish, and I think throughout this documentary. And
Yeah.
when you have 36 Gen Z high achieving, talented people as well, right? All together, really bonded, really together, trying to move an organization in a certain way. The clash between their boomer leaders and that is it's fascinating to watch. To me, that's the most interesting thing in this whole documentary.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to go into more examples, but it shows up throughout. And are they trying? Yeah, you see them trying in bits and bites, right? But they don't understand. And maybe that's, it's hard enough to be a leader, right? We've both been in business a long time. We have trained many leaders. We have been trained ourselves as leaders. You and I both grew up in very different fields, but we both had those hard-nosed bosses in our careers who didn't care what we wanted when we were in our 20s and said, go sit your butt down in your seat and do your job, right? There was no rewards and recognition. Oh my gosh, if I got a raise, that's your reward and recognition right there. So I get it. And I've been that boss maybe where I wasn't appreciating right? When the millennials were kind of coming in behind us. Eh, So I do understand, but I don't feel like that's an excuse to not change. Gen Z aren't the ones. This is for every leader. Gen Z, they don't need to change. This work world is now becoming theirs. If we want to stay in positions of power and leadership and innovation in our organizations, we have to adapt. And that was what was annoying me. I thought, boy, they're kind of focusing so much on the girls. I just hope if they're still around next year, I hope there's some method to address what Judy and Kelly have to do to be better leaders, because I think they're missing the mark. Just having a survey and doing a couple like, oh, you mean I need to tell you I love you? Okay, I love you. That's not genuine. So I guess that's what was missing for me. They don't.
Yeah, I've seen you two. You've been much tougher on these two than I left with. I think they've made a lot of progress. Now, perhaps
Yeah, they have.
I'm overestimating and giving them too much credit, but
But
um,
having turnover now, right? Now that you've taken away the money as an issue, are they having more turnover in this 2025-26 football season than they have had in the past? Yes, they have. And
mhm.
so that's what it gets down to. So by the time that the Dallas organization, the Cowboys organization, figures this all out and catches up, it's too late, because I guarantee those ladies are still there now at age 62 and 69. Now, in some ways are is, look, I'm 55. I'm not saying like, "Oh my gosh, get rid of you at 60," right? What I'm saying is if you're not willing or able to adapt without contempt for your employees, I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 30 or 40 or 50. You need to be fired, because you are hurting your organization. You are hurting that movement that 36 cheerleaders worked so hard for.
Mm.
And that's what bothers me. And are they doing brand deals and other things? Yeah, these girls, I even wrote down like, what other jobs have a weeks long interview process where you work and you're on a TV show and you're doing all these appearances and then you don't get the job? What? Like, what? The whole thing. Look, the whole thing to me is a little crazy, Steve. It's crazy.
Yeah, they have a very arduous process for selection, right? And I guess if you want to talk about HR and workplace issues,
Yeah.
I think there's really probably three major ones, right? It's worth watching this documentary for. It's the leadership tension we've talked about. It's the kind of Gen Z influence in work and workplaces that we've talked about. The compensation issues we talked about is three. And I guess I guess it'd be four. The fourth one is sort of the selection process here, right? So the recruiting, the evaluation, and the selection process, as well as the cut process, right? Some of the most poignant and emotional scenes in this documentary are when applicants are cut from the team and aren't going to make the team, and they to their credit, this is all filmed and shown in this documentary, at least most of it, right? We don't see every single person getting left cut from the team, but we see quite a few of them, and it's devastating, right? And for these applicants who one of whom, I forget her name, but she was her first time trying out for the team, had said to the coaches, and we see some of her backstory in the documentary, it was her dream since 5, 6 years old. I want to
Yeah.
be a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. And she got very close to making it within the last two or three cuts and didn't make it, right? So
Here's
her,
my question for you on that specifically. Okay. And I know you don't know this is coming, but how did you feel? Because Kelly almost always says the words and Judy is just sitting next to her.
right, because Kelly was in charge. Yes.
How did you feel Kelly handled herself with those women that she was cutting? Do you feel like she did it with compassion or do you feel like she just did it?
I actually think she does a pretty good job at that. She doesn't sugarcoat it. You've done, Trish, as we've talked about on this show a number of times, you have
I'm
terminated
pursing my
people.
lips.
You
I just
have,
I'm like, "Oh my god."
you've terminated people. I think she does a pretty good job. She doesn't sugarcoat it. She tells them flat out. She gives them reasons why. She talks. Typically, she'll say your kicks aren't good, or you're not fitting in, you're not standing, whatever. Right? You're 1 year away maybe from being ready for this. You should be proud of yourself, but you're not going to make it. I, I think she actually does a pretty good job in those conversations.
Yeah.
Tell me
I
I'm
was
wrong.
No, I was on board with you until the one girl that was her favorite because I was shocked she actually had to cut her favorite, but she kind of got pushed by her boss
Yeah,
to
a
make
little bit. Yeah.
so it was pretty clear Charlotte was like, yeah, this isn't her time. So Kelly did have to cut her favorite. When you compare the way she did it with such warmth and love and compassion for that girl. Oh, and you better come back. You better try out next time. What about all the other ones that were phenomenal? And this was also around the time where they tell you that one of the girls, I don't want to say it 'cause I don't want to spoil everything, but one of the girls, so at this point we've already got your veteran, there's 4 leaders and co-leaders basically of
Mm-hmm.
the 4 sections of the football field, 4 corners. And so those girls had already been announced. So they called them in and they said, "Hey, what do you all think? Before we make these final cuts, right?
Yeah.
Last few, put your sticker, here's your stickers, your colored stickers, put it on the ones you want to keep, who you've seen." Now, Kelly isn't even there all the time. Kelly and Judy are not there all the time. It's the actual team leaders, fellow cheerleaders who are watching these women develop through this training camp. Those women put their stickers on certain ones. One girl got one sticker. Guess who made the team? Guess who Kelly decided made the team? Faith, because she liked Faith, because Charlotte liked Faith. So again, have we really changed? Have we really grown? Have we really developed? Why? Okay, because if I'm one of those 8 team leaders and I go back and watch that episode where I show I'm making my vote to keep this girl, here are my reasons, and a majority of us as team leaders say that's the one we want or the 2 or 3 we want, and then our boss goes in and those are the 2 or 3 they cut,
Mm.
you've just lost me.
Yeah. I admit to not reading that quite as closely as you did, so I didn't catch that,
Right.
but that's a good
I was
point.
quite fired up, Steve.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, you see this right in normal hiring processes, right? You're bringing in someone, particularly, maybe a senior role.
Yeah,
Other team members might get the chance to sit with that candidate or all candidates, get to know them, interview them a little bit, talk to them, and then
yeah.
ultimately the VP or the CEO or someone like that's going to make the hiring decision, and it may or may not go against what the team members, recommend, right? That
Well,
happens all
then
the time.
don't ask the team members then.
Hmm.
Because it
Yeah,
sends a I'm sorry, it sends a subliminal message or maybe a direct message to those leaders like, "Okay, yeah, they asked me, that's different."
yeah,
They didn't they didn't listen, like they never do. So again, I'm just trying to think pure like what as an HR leader, what should be done? Only only ask for input if you're actually gonna do something meaningful with it. Otherwise,
mm,
don't ask. You're hurting yourself more. Again, when you look at your turnover at the end of that season, it's
yeah.
in others, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
there is so much here. You would think the first time we did this last year, I would have thought, why are we doing this movie?
I know.
Because you think, oh, it's a show about cheerleading, but when
It
you
could be
really dive into, yeah, when you really dive into it, it's a show about kind of human interaction in the workplace. It's a show about leadership. It's a show about um, encouragement and recognition that we've talked about some. It's really at some levels it's a show about the role work and success has in people's lives.
Oh,
You really see both from the cheerleaders themselves, whose dreams or lifelong dreams to be on this team, and the huge change it's made in their lives, and they've architected their entire lives around having this job, which many of them discuss, and you see
sure.
in the documentary, as well as the coaches. Right? We said, Judy and Kelly, they're 61 and 68 or 62 now, whatever. you almost get the impression, at least I do, and I could be wrong, who knows, from watching 2 seasons of the show, that those two are going to be dragged out of there, screaming when they're not going to just retire anytime soon. Like,
Yeah.
and Kelly even talks about, right, two times in the documentary about, oh, I missed my kids and I missed this and I missed that. I was so, like, at some level, they take these jobs maybe perhaps a little too seriously, but
Right.
they do, right, for what it's worth. And many of us, quite honestly, probably take our own jobs a little too seriously at times. And over in the course of our lives, have missed things in our lives we probably ought not have missed, right, for our silly jobs that we have. But they do, right? And it happens. It's a big part of working in America, right?
Yeah.
So I do get the sense that it's a good reflection, and maybe you can take that away as well. Like, wow, what am I doing in my job? In my job, what am I asking my people to do? Maybe even a better question, right? They ask so much of these team members, and they ask a lot of themselves as well, and so it's really interesting from that perspective as well. I don't know that I have really a conclusion or a recommendation on it, but just
Yeah.
maybe to just reflect on that a little bit if you do watch this, or you've already watched it, maybe think back about it, like what am I giving up, to achieve a certain level of success in whatever field I'm in.
Yeah. I think if you're in that situation, if you are even if you're in your 30s, you still have reflection, right, back on the decade before. So, I would just say, is it worth it? Is what you're doing worth it? If you in the case of Kelly, yes, did she say she missed out on a lot with her own children? I might feel a little better about that for her if she was this really warm, compassionate crew coach to these young women where she could look back and say, well, yes, in hindsight, I should have probably spent more time with my own children, but I did develop these really warm, compassionate, kind cheerleader athletes who became blah, 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 right? Like, I don't think she can say that though. I think that's the thing. You have, if you are not good at developing the people you actually made in this world, nor the ones in your workplace, then something's wrong. Something's off. At some point, maybe she was, again, we're not seeing her. I know she started this right after her cheer seasons were up, which was like late 80s, early 90s. She became the director. And maybe she was doing a lot of great stuff. I know marketing, expanded tremendously under her leadership and her guidance. So, yeah, but as a people leader, I think there's a difference. I've worked in a lot of different kinds of environments over the last 30 years. And there are people leaders and there are, like, task leaders. She's a task leader to me. So you're
Mm.
right. We do need, both a younger, upcoming, replacement, probably for both of them. They probably need 2. If I were running
Mhm.
it, I do 2. And I would get someone who one of the things in the show notes, then and I don't know if you or Karen wrote this, but was talking about the invisible work of employees.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna read it because I think it's really good, and I don't wanna paraphrase. Says, "Are they real they're rarely recognizing the employee who calms an anxious coworker, the manager who spends hours coaching someone through a difficult season, and the team member who quietly keeps everyone informed and corrected." And so this is just one of the people, Kelly just was on her all the time, her name is Klein, because Klein doesn't always have discernment at
Mhm.
imagine at 22, not having discernment of when to open your mouth, not to. But I you could have said that about me, probably even today. But to berate someone like that, but when the camera shows all that behind the scenes invisible work that Klein is
Right.
doing, she's the cheerleader for the cheerleaders.
Mhm.
She's the one getting them fired up. She's the one encouraging them. And there are many others too. These veteran cheerleaders are they're doing the work I wish the 2 bosses were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. And I think we see that in organizations as well, right? More senior employees, more senior members of the team, experienced members of the team, either explicitly or tacitly, right, expected to help bring along the new members of the team and encourage them and support them and help show them the ropes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We do see that a lot. And again, shout out to our friends at Work Human, right? That's one of the great things that recognition in the workplace can help surface, right? Because in most workplaces, a lot of that work and those contributions just go unseen. But if you've
Yeah.
got that mechanism and that capacity to elevate those kinds of interactions and elevate those contributions through recognition
Mhm.
specifically, then those things can become, you know, real, explicit elements, right, that the organization can grab onto, learn from, to share, to gain insight from, and help train others on, et cetera. So many good things that come from it. So great, great. You mentioned earlier in the show, like, oh, they really need work here, then right in this organization, but
They
it's
do.
really true, right? Like when you see some of how those interactions are going on, it's quite likely that the coach's impressions of Klein specifically would have been much different, right? Had they known what the other team members were actually, what they were getting from her and what she was
Yeah.
giving to them.
She's their fill-in. She's their humanizing fill-in. And look, I don't wanna say there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I'll tell on myself a little bit. When I was at PwC for many years, I had to be in the role as you go up further as an HR professional, at least it was when I was there, in my office, you have to be pretty hard nosed. You're bringing in a lot of new hires every year and you're firing a lot of people every year. That's just a cycle. It's everyone is type A. Everyone has been a high achiever their entire lives. And so to turn around and let those people go, is difficult. Those are difficult conversations. But I had um, she was an HR manager. I'd hired her. She was more junior to me. I hired her as an associate and she'd worked her way up. She and I can be very compassionate, but in my job there, I was past that point, right? I was now senior leadership and people would want to come talk to me and I'd be like, okay, are we crying? Are we not crying? Because if we're crying, we're going to go to Courtney. And if we're not crying and you want actual like tough love solutions, let's really nail it. Then come on in. But I think that's what it's missing. It's fine if Kelly's like that. It's fine if Judy's like that. They've got to have somebody that's softer.
Mm,
Doesn't mean Kelly and Judy can't be soft. They can. But in their role, they have to also get certain things done. They have to
sure.
meet certain measurable goals, right? Um, in terms of their team. So yeah, I think you can't expect leaders to do both, especially the higher you go. You're going to have some that are more human relation based. And truly, like when you think about work human, and we've obviously they're a sponsor of the show, but like we believe in what they do because we've seen how it works. And it's
Yeah.
not just about money.
No.
Yes, monetary rewards or points or gifts wonderful. That is an important element. I'm not going to say it's not. But when you message me after I've done something, or I message you, or we message Karen, and we say, You often, you're very good at it. You will send me something, just says, thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. Or that turned out really well. I really appreciate that. That means more to me than any amount of money could,
Yeah.
honestly. I don't need
Yeah.
a monetary reward from you, but yeah, or sending me a thumbs up. Like it might
Yeah.
sound nothing. And that's what we're missing in this workplace, I think.
Yeah.
So, oh, did you see that
There
I
you
did the
go.
thumbs up and it went? Can we do 2?
Yeah, there's loads to unpack here,
Yeah,
Trish. We've gone maybe a little over than we wanted
I
to, but that's
know.
okay. I mean, it's
I
7.5 hours of content we're trying to dissect into 35 minutes, but
yeah.
I think worth watching. I think my main takeaway is you want Kelly and Judy fired, gone forever. I think
I'm
they
going to
can
send
still
them a
develop.
I'm
I
gonna send
think
them a
they can
credit back.
grow. I don't think we're going to get Kelly on the show either if she listens to this, by the way.
I don't I don't know. Well, I'll write him a letter. I'm gonna send it to Jerry.
All right. Well, let's try to get
Oh,
let's try to get some engagement with the folks at DCC for this show. So we'll try that. This was super fun. It's on Netflix. Go check it out. Season 3, Emmy nominated, America's Sweethearts, Dallas Cowboy Cheerleader Show, Season 3. If you watch it, let us know what you think. Hit us up, LinkedIn, YouTube, all the shows on hrhappyhour.net, of course. And again, we've shouted out our friends at Work Human a couple times, but thanks, of course, to them for all their support. Trish, good stuff. Welcome back. Good to have you.
thank you. I just see I needed a reason to get fired up, and here I didn't think this was gonna be it, but it's good to be back.
All right, good
And
stuff.
We are team DCC cheerleaders. Let's just say that as a closing comment.
Absolutely. Good stuff. All right. We'll see everybody next time, and bye for now.